Good early evening, grinders. Welcome to Tuesday Showdown Live. Don't worry about what it says up there. It says Monday Showdown. They didn't give me a slate for Tuesday because whenever are we going to get Tuesday night football ever again? So why even bother changing the graphics? I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blenderhead. This is the first time we've done a show together where I'm producing and hosting. This is kind of like. Now, when I interrupt you, like I'm actually in my place to do so, and not interrupting the host like I normally do on the morning grind. It's Stevie Young. Are you excited for Tuesday night football?
Yeah, it's weird because we don't have Thursday night football now, right? So like we shifted all the Thursday to Tuesday, but yeah, just finished making some baseball lineups, working on some football lineups. So yeah, it's fun. Like more football, why not?
Right, and then we on this slate, it's more football with less people that you've heard of. I mean,
Yeah,
uh,
right.
you have to think we have Buffalo versus Tennessee tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern game, so it's a little bit early. That with obviously the Titans have gone through a COVID outbreak that they haven't practiced legally. They may have gotten some secret workouts in, and half their team is out. Assessing what's going to happen in this game, I think, is going to be much tougher than other slates. But that's what makes it perfect for Showdown, because Showdown is the perfect slate to. I've never heard of this guy. Well, I'm going to play 20% of him because that's just as viable as anyone else. So, can you go through? We just got the inactives for both teams and go in the situations that we should be looking into.
Well, we already knew that like the big thing we were going to be looking at here is like the Tennessee wide receivers. We knew we were waiting on AJ Brown. He's going to play. Corey Davis with COVID, he's out. Adam Humphries with COVID, he's out. And there was one other person. Well, I can't think of his name now. Batson with COVID, and he's out. So that was already the situation that we were kind of looking at. I think it was a little shock to me that John Brown was inactive and Zach Moss. They were like trending in the right direction. So that obviously makes the Buffalo side a little bit more interesting, and maybe we get a little bit more condensed targets there. So, yeah, nothing too crazy, right? Like, I think the biggest thing is Zach Moss. I was expecting him to play. I think everybody was kind of expecting him to play.
On the other side of the ball with the Titans, with AJ Brown in, he's obviously going to be their number one target. And we also have Jonnu Smith. He's healthy and fine, and we see him. They play a lot of two tight end sets, 12 personnel. But with Corey Davis out and Humphreys out, I mean, does this promote Khalif Raymond to like every down duty, or are we going to see a lot more of these secondary guys? I mean, we have like a guy like Westbrook at 200. I don't even know. Like, is Michael Pruitt active, or is he out also?
I'm pretty sure Pruitt's out as well. So Raymond is the other outside wide receiver. He comes in a lot for like Corey Davis when Corey Davis needs a second. So I would expect him to be the everyday or every down back or wide receiver too. Yeah, like Pruitt is out. So I was looking that up. It confused me. But yeah, so like Raymond is going to be the number 2 here. Like he should play as many snaps as he can handle in this one.
Right, and on the other side of the ball, you get an upgrade because John Brown is out. I have to assume that Gabriel Davis is going to be on the field a lot more. We saw in the past 2 games that Davis is actually out there way more than Cole Beasley. But when Cole Beasley is in, like he's getting more of the targets. I mean, Gabriel Davis is an outside wide receiver mostly, and Beasley is that slot guy that is trying to get the first downs. So with John Brown, he's typically, and if they're playing two perimeter wide receivers, I think we're going to see. I mean, I don't think Davis's snap share changes much, other than like he gets to see more targets because Brown is out, and I think Beasley is in the same type of role where you have to kind of bet on efficiency because he's not going to be out there for more than half the snaps.
Yeah, kind of digging into this whole situation, looking back a little bit towards like the season, I think like you're right. I don't think like Davis sees a huge increase in snaps. Like John Brown was like banged up last game, and like Davis still saw 36% of the snaps. Like he's the slot guy. You know, he actually saw more snaps than Beasley last game. So maybe they move one of these guys to the outside. But I think most of all, I think it's going to potentially be McKenzie who sees more snaps than anybody that, you know, we kind of expect.
Right, and for 800 on the DK Showdown slate, I mean, he's a gadget type of player. So he's the type of guy that may, even if he's only getting 20% of the snaps, like they'll design plays for McKenzie that, you know, similar to how the Saints design plays for Taysom Hill to either our frustration or our joy. Typically for me, are my frustration because I never play him. That I mean, you could build lineups today if you're going to play guys like McKenzie or Westbrook. That, like, I say this on a lot of showdown slates that I do with cards or with Keith. That I don't think I see. This is a weird slate where I don't think the captain chalk is going to necessarily be that. To me, there's no single captain that's like yesterday, Kamara. It's like, yeah, bang. Like obviously the high floor ceiling combo player. But I could definitely see in these large field GPPs where if you're using too much of McKenzie and Westbrook or you're playing a lot of Gabriel Davis at 4,600 or Raymond at 4,800, that if you're spending all your salary, you're most likely going to be duped a ton of times. But I think you can be different enough in the captain spot because, like, I know I say this all the time. I'm not a big fan of playing quarterbacks in the captain because it's very hard for them to get there without the wide receiver getting a higher score. But, like, Josh Allen at 13K, like, I can't possibly see playing him in the captain because if you do, you're going to play the two cheap guys and it's going to be duped. And Allen, out of all the quarterbacks, can get there through rushing. But is he going to be able to pay off a 13? Is he going to be able to pay off a 20.5K price tag in the captain spot? I think I'm much more likely if I'm going to pay up and just take Diggs at that point.
In cash games, I have Allen as my captain right now, but in tournaments, I barely have any Allen. I have a lot of John or AJ Brown and Diggs as my captain right now in tournaments. I think looking through like Slate IQ, seeing where the leverage is, you know, I think one of those guys is going to be the optimal captain for tournaments. And there's so many different ways you could be different with your builds. Like my stance, I think, like going into this slate is I'm going to be under on Derrick Henry. I just like that's my stand for this one. Like, you know, I'm going to play Raymond. I love Westbrook. He's my highest owned player right now. Like when I was building my team, so that's kind of where I'm looking at, you know, to get started.
But we can see a Titans game script where because all these guys are out, that they just lean heavily on Henry and feed him the ball 30 to 35 times. I mean, the Bills' rushing defense is probably worse than their passing defense. But we also missed another inactive that if you're into wide receiver cornerback type of matchups, Tre'Davious White is out. So, I mean, he's obviously a top-notch cornerback. That would probably be on A.J. Brown more often than not. Do you think that the way that the pricing sets out, that more people will be playing Brown in the captain spot? Or do you think it's viable that this could be a classic Titans game, as we think of the Titans from last year, of Tannehill passes it 12 times and Henry gets the ball 35 times?
I think Buffalo's going to score too much for them to kind of do that. Like this offense has been really good this season, so I think Tennessee's going to have to throw. If you're thinking that though, like right, if you're thinking that's what's going to happen, then you have to have some exposure to Henry in the captain spot. But I think that way pricing sets up, I think AJ Brown could potentially be our highest owned captain on this slate. Just a little bit cheaper than Diggs. I think everyone knows, like with these wide receivers out and, you know, Brown coming back, I think that a lot of people are going to just assume that he's going to get a ton of targets and play him in the captain spot as a little bit of a discount from Diggs and Henry, and definitely a discount from like Josh Allen.
And Donnie Watson in the chat. If you're in the YouTube chat, feel free to ask your questions. We could see you. Hit that thumbs up button. Thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. Just hit all the mouse buttons, all you want on YouTube. It helps us out. But he asks, what are we doing with Singletary now with no real backup? And if with his passing game work at 8K, I think Singletary makes. I mean, obviously, I think he's a great cash play. I think he's a great GPP play. But I think if you play him in the captain, I think I'm more likely to just not have Josh Allen in that lineup because Singletary has like one of the worst touchdown variances of any running back because Josh Allen decides to take it in himself.
Yeah, I could see making a group of 0 to 1 with Allen and Singletary and just completely eliminating playing those two together. But I could also see playing those two together and just kind of hoping that the Bills score 4 or 5 touchdowns and you kind of get your 1 or 2 touchdowns from Singletary. And with his price, he's not like overly expensive, but he's still kind of expensive at 8K. He's like in that range of like, do I go up to Brown? Do I go down to Jonnu Smith? I think that obviously the floor for Singletary is really high. And like you said, he makes for, an excellent cash game play in this spot.
And Eric Lynn asks in the YouTube chat, is there any news reports that Westbrook is the guy for 3 wide sets for Tennessee? Or are we just assuming this?
I'm assuming, kind of digging through the game logs and everything like that. He's the only one that's played like snaps outside of Raymond. And like, we're assuming that Raymond's going to kind of be the number 2 guy. And so like my only concern with like Westbrook is like, is he able to play the slot? Like, so could they potentially put Raymond in the slot? Like Raymond's a little bit smaller guy. Westbrook's a little bit bigger guy. So I'm hoping that we potentially see like Westbrook move to the outside and Raymond move to the slot in this spot. It's all guess. Like they could go 2 tight end sets. Like we don't know. They could run Frickster and Jonnu Smith out there. Like it's an assumption and it's a showdown slate. And I think you have to take stands, and that's where I'm taking a stand.
Right. It seems like both these teams are big fans of the troll touchdowns, like those secondary tight ends. So even outside of like Berkshire and Tennessee, but I mean we have guys like Dawson Knox, Tyler Croft, like those tight ends, which are going to go much lower owned because you're going to get up to Raymond and Davis, or you're going to go down to Westbrook or McKenzie. And someone in the chat makes a perfect comment that with Raymond and Davis priced at 4,800 and 4,600, like these kickers, like are going to go under owned for what normally you'd see kickers on showdown slates. The caveat with playing the kickers, though, is they always have to beat someone lower priced than them. So, like, if one of them gets 8 points, like if anyone underneath them, if McKenzie gets 9, like the kicker's not gonna be optimal. So if you're going to if you're going to play a lineup with a kicker, you're probably gonna fade one of the cheaper guys because a better lineup probably beats you. Because the kicker, it's very rare that a kicker puts up 18 plus points that like becomes necessary. You're just playing the kicker in the hopes that that Tyler Croft doesn't catch a touchdown. Or if it does, he has like 6 points, 7 points, but the kickers have 10. So I think with the ownership on the kickers probably being a little lower on this slate in comparison to other showdown slates, I think for a low scoring game type of lineup, I think the kickers are definitely in play.
Yeah, like I have some kicker lineups. I have like 10% of, I think, both kickers. Yeah, 10% of both kickers. So, with all these cheap players that we don't really know what we're going to get, then we just kind of take a shot, right? Like we have to assume, like there was a team that I built right before we got started that had a kicker and Westbrook, but like the rest of the team was completely stacked. So I'm going to roll with that one as well.
Who are the punt returners? So for these teams now, because I know the double dip is getting more popular. If you're going to play the defense and cheap guy and he's the punt returner, you could always get that kick return touchdowns counting twice. So with all these guys out, like who's returning punts on and kicks on each side?
Let me see if I can find it. That's a good question. I have no idea.
Right, especially on this type of slate. A lot of times I don't necessarily care that much, but when these cheap guys are in play, I mean, we also have we have like the backup running backs. We have guys like Jeremy McNichols, right? I mean, who's going to be on the field for Singletary? Like, Singletary's not going to play 100% of the snaps. So who's behind him? I mean, you have Darrington Evans also there for Tennessee. I just don't think they touch the ball enough that it's worth rostering. But I mean, I'm looking through. Is it Tywan Jones? Is he the backup?
So what I'm reading here is it's Raymond and McKenzie.
Okay, so it's the guys that you'd play anyway. So it's not one of those like Duvernay type of double dips where the guy really doesn't have any chance to score outside of a special teams play.
Yeah, and Andre Roberts returned some kicks for Buffalo as well.
Okay.
There you go.
So looking through the YouTube chat for questions. Yeah, someone mentioned Andre Roberts in the chat. Can we play both quarterbacks in the same lineup in GPP? I mean you can, but typically at their prices, it kind of constrains what you're going to do, and the rest you got to be different somewhere. So if you're going to play both quarterbacks in the lineup, like you got to take a shot on one of these single-digit owned guys because the quarterbacks tend to get higher owned. So if you're going to try to play Allen, Diggs, Tannehill, Brown, and then like I just think that, and then Westbrook. I mean, like I just think it's going to be small field tournament. Sure, okay, you could do that, but I think in the large field stuff, I think the duplication factor is going to be too high.
Yeah, like I think if you're playing the quarterbacks together, like maybe throw in a defense to make your lineup unique. Like nobody's going to play both quarterbacks in a defense. You're just kind of hoping for a pick six. Like it's something that we talked about, kind of on Monday, how you were like, oh, defenses, they don't correlate with the quarterbacks. Well, I think that's one of the only ways that like you can be somewhat different with like a 2 quarterback stack.
Someone in chat is Donnie Watson's mentioning a Hollister. That he's in the DK player pool. I know we were looking before.
Yeah.
Cody Hollister. I mean, he's going to be the 5th wide receiver. I mean, they also have like Jeff Swaim there. Isn't he active? He's the 3rd tight end. I mean, obviously you could take shots on Hollister. I mean, he's the cheap guy. If you're not going to play, Westbrook, I mean, play Hollister. But I think more. I really think if I had to have a probability, I just think the Titans are going to play a lot more 2 tight end sets, or play Jonnu Smith in the slot, or something, rather than have these cheap guys on the field for like 80% of the snaps.
I think if you're playing Hollister and Frickster, you like just make a group, lineup HQ, make a group 0 to 1. Don't play like 2 of those guys together. Just kind of hope you get the right one right, and that lineup goes off. Let's talk Jonnu Smith for a second. Like we could play him in the captain spot. Like this could be a Jonnu Smith smash spot. Like he could score 2 touchdowns, and people don't love playing, when it's not Kelsey or Kittle or Andrews or somebody like that in a tight end in the captain spot. I think Jonnu Smith is a great captain on this slate.
Well, I think people don't realize that Jonnu Smith is playing a much bigger role in the passing game. It's more similar to maybe not a Kelsey or a Kittle, but I mean similar to a guy like Darren Waller. I mean, we saw last year Darren Waller was like a $4,000 tight end, and then they started passing him. He was a main target for the Raiders, and I think Tannehill is looking at Smith the same way and may want to lean on him a lot more, especially with a lot of these like practice squad guys out. That are out on the field because they probably don't have as much rhythm. Playing for the 2nd and 3rd team, or the opponent team that they're playing against. But no, Jonnu Smith is not going to be a popular captain at 7,200. Most people are you'll find a way to get up to Brown. You'll play Singletary in the captain. But the only thing is, if you're going to play Jonnu Smith in the captain, I think you have to play Tannehill in the flex, because it's not Jonnu Smith's not necessarily the type of person that gets there in one play. So I think he's going to come by way of volume, which means Tannehill gets up to, the 250, 300-yard game. So you could even play Jonnu Smith in the captain as well as A.J. Brown in the flex at his price. And I think that lineup makes more sense without, like, Allen in the lineup, because you wouldn't be able to afford him. You play, like, Diggs as your Buffalo, one-off for Singletary. Like that, Jonnu Smith makes sense in, like, a 4-2 type of Tennessee-Buffalo lineup, rather than a 2-4 the other way where, like, he's the only guy there.
Yeah, like, I'm with you on that. I think if you're playing him, it's more likely in a 4 Tennessee build, and then, like, maybe Singletary and Diggs as your Buffalo run backs.
Oh, someone's mentioned. Oh, TJ Yeldon. I forgot about him. Okay, thank you for reminding me of who the backup in Buffalo is. TJ Yeldon. But we've seen they barely use him. So yeah, it's not Taiwan Jones, but I mean he's in the player pool also. So TJ Yeldon is active. So yes, I guess maybe we see him for a couple of snaps. Uh, Jack Boy Henry asks, "What do you think about Gabriel Davis with Cole Beasley in?" I think we discussed that before. That I don't think Davis sees sees an uptick in snaps, but without John Brown in, I mean his value has to go up. But I think less people will play Beasley at the higher price. So if you're trying to build a contrarian lineup, I think Beasley is better than Davis for 2K more because people aren't going to spend up for that. But I still don't think you play at 6.8 Beasley in the captain spot.
No, I can't. I can't recommend playing Beasley. Like, I think Beasley's fine. I think he could potentially be a safer type of play on this slate. But I don't think you play him in the captain spot. He should get 5 to 8 targets here, but
Right.
I don't think it's enough to pay off the captain. Like, he's a guy that they use to move the chains. Like, he's not a guy that is always looked at in the red zone. Like, what does he have? 2 red zone targets this season, I think.
Yeah, most of the time it seems like Allen takes it himself. They rush it in or they throw to a tight end in the red zone, or Diggs, or it's going to Diggs. So I'm not even sure if Beasley gets many red zone snaps, let alone targets.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, I just Beasley's more of a flex type of play. Um, more on DraftKings than FanDuel too. Like, I don't know how much I would really get exposure to him on FanDuel.
Right, because the PPR scoring, you want the full point. He's someone that racks up, 8-yard catches, much more prevalent on DraftKings. Uh, Dawson Knox, does he get over 20 yards? I mean, that could happen, James Corvino. And who's Henry's backup? Are we? I mean, Henry barely comes off the field. I mean, he gets spelled, I guess, by like Evans or McNichols. I mean, McNichols is more of like the third down type of pass catching back. Darrington Evans, we've barely seen. Uh, I mean, I guess they're in play. I mean, I would not play these guys in lineups that have Henry in them, but I think Henry is going to go underowned this slate. I think the popularity of Brown and the popularity of Diggs or Singletary. I think at the 11K price tag, like I know I agree with you from a probabilities perspective that he's 11K. He's probably a little overpriced, and he's very reliant on touchdowns for his ceiling. So if Buffalo puts up a lot of points, Henry's not necessarily his ceiling probability goes down, but I think his ownership does as well. I'm just looking at some constructions that I'm making here in lineup HQ, and with the project, at least with Cardi's blitz projections, like he doesn't stand out as a great median play, so he's probably not going to find his way into a lot of your opponent's lineups. So maybe we could take advantage of that. But that's not the most probable game script, right? So like you said before, like you're not a big fan of Henry today. I'm just more of a big fan of the contrarian angle that less people not playing AJ Brown and playing Henry in the captain to be much more unique. And then you could even play Allen. You could play some cheap Buffalo wide receivers, and even like the Guskowski. So Henry runs the ball and they're kicking field goals, that type of thing. And I think it's going to be less owned.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense too. I just when you're looking at Henry and the projected ownership at like 63%, I just want to be under that. Like, I
No,
don't
I just
see
think it's going to
Henry.
be. I just think it's
You
naturally
think
going to
it's
be
going to
under
be?
that. I'm
Yeah.
like it may be projected at 62 currently. I know Jamino is updating. He updated now. It's up to 63. I just see so many builds where people are jamming in Diggs or Brown into the captain spot or Allen in the captain spot that it's kind of hard to make builds with Henry in the captain as well as using Allen or Diggs. That because you're probably not gonna play Tannehill in the flex if you have Henry in the captain. So I just see a path. I'm not saying I do it in a lot of lineups, but I just see a path to a more contrarian lineup by playing Henry at captain. So I don't want to rule it out, but like you said, like it's probably not median wise the best play, but for large field GPPs, I think it's definitely viable.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I am my single entry and like my cash lineup that I built for this slate. Like I have Josh Allen at captain. I like the team. I think it's a really strong team. So I think you can kind of go whatever you want. But like I have barely any Josh Allen in my 20 entry max script. So that's where I think it's kind of different. I think taking the floor at Josh Allen in cash is fine, but in tournaments, like there's just so many ways that these wide receiver ones outscore Allen in the captain spot.
James asks, are you interested in fading Henry and Allen at captain with the Bills wide receiver and the rest Tennessee guys with money left on the table to be different? I'll always say to leave money. I mean, you should see some of my lineups. I could leave 5,000 on the table. I'm on this type of slate, especially when you have cheaper guys that are thrusted into bigger roles. That it's quite possible that maybe Diggs doesn't get there, right? And that salary is wasted. So if you're building let's say you're building a lineup that comes in over 49.5 and it has Diggs in it, we'll take Diggs out and put Beasley there instead. Like you're not doing anything else other than going down to the worst player and just hoping that Beasley outscores Diggs. So I think if you're building, especially if you're hand building lineups like that, I think that's a good way to play the large field tournaments and get different by not going out of your way to play, quote, worse plays, but build the best lineup you can and then go, well, take one of them out and leave 4,000 on the table and replace them with a play that, if you had a choice, you'd rather play Diggs in that spot, but that's what most people are doing. So maybe, 1 out of 6 times Beasley beats Diggs score in this game, or Khalif Raymond beats Diggs score in this game, and you're leaving 6,000 on the table, but it's only going to be duplicated if hopefully uniquely, and you're the only one with that, but maybe less than 5 times, so that when that lineup wins, you're winning like $100,000 and not $1,700.
Yep, I think like especially on this slate, you can be very different by just leaving money on the table, like you were saying. Like there's teams that I've built that I have $1,800 left over, and I really like the team. So I think that is definitely something to be different. Like we're gonna see pretty condensed ownership with these wide receivers, the running backs, the quarterbacks here. So leaving salary on the table, like there's a clear chalk $200 player on this slate on DraftKings. So it's going to open up a lot of potential chalk here.
Right, I'm going to switch over here since I am producing, so I get to switch my view. I'm going to switch over to lineup HQ because what I like doing sometimes to assess like what like type of constructions there are is to basically use the default projections and then run 300 lineups to see like how who's in more lineups, and then see who's not in more lineups, and then try to consider builds with those type of guys. So this is premium stuff. So you could sign up for rotogrinders.com/premium. You get $5 off if for your first month of a Core 4 subscription. That's NFL and NBA, MLB, PGA. You get all 4 core sports, and you get full access to Lineup HQ, the projections, ownership projections, and everything. So I mean, it's a great tool that I use. But on a free show, we'll give away some stuff. So I'm using Cardi's Blitz projections, which I mean is an add-on. Then they're great for NFL. The Bat is great for MLB. The core projections are kind of a blend from Sports Info Solutions, so they're still good. Typically, the differences between them are a half a point here and a half a point there. But now I'm generating. You could see here I'm generating 300 lineups. So while that's going on, someone is, could you play Diggs and Beasley together? Most likely, if you're playing Diggs and Beasley together, you're probably playing Josh Allen in the lineup.
Yeah.
If they both hit their ceiling, probably Allen gets there too. But obviously, remember, if this is a low-scoring slate, the winning lineups could look really wacky. I say this on a lot of showdown slates. High-scoring game, typically more correlated. So I get it. But a lot of people don't build for low-scoring games because everyone bets the over, right, Stevie? Everyone loves betting the over. No one likes rooting for nothing, right? When you're sitting there going, I hope they don't score. I hope the less entertaining thing happens. So the same thing applies in Showdown. This game could be 13-3, And in a 13-3 game, like, who knows? The kicker could be the winning captain in that type of lineup. The defense is a winning captain. Some weird uncorrelated mess wins. You can build those lineups. That nothing stops you from doing that, especially in large field GPPs.
Yeah, if it's gonna be a 13-3 game, I'm not making money. So let's just hope that doesn't happen. No, I think I don't see this slate being like a double defense build or a double defense kicker build. Like, this game has a 53 total. Like, the Titans haven't played or practiced a lot. Like, they're gonna be a little slow. Like, the Titans, they're obviously the biggest question mark here. But the Bills' offense has been great this season. Let's just talk about that. Like, Josh Allen's been playing great. Like, I expect him to keep rolling right here.
Yeah, but that's what everyone expects. But you never, just like the Spanish Inquisition, you can't expect it. For the old school Monty Python reference.
Listen, if it happens, it happens. I lose money, I move on to the next slate. We get back on it on Sunday. Like, that's just where I'm at.
Well, you don't have to build all your lineups that way. That's the beauty of playing large field GPPs. You don't have to make that choice. I could make 5 lineups that are for like 70 total type games, and I can make 5 lineups for a 6-3 garbage fest. And if one wins, one could win, or the others lose. So, I mean, if you're playing multiple entries, even if you're playing one entry, I'd rather play the entry that is unique. But that's just me. I'm a glutton for punishment. I don't mind putting in 20 entries and losing them all, for as long as all 20 of them were reasonably enough unique. Because I like last night, I got pissed at myself. I made 60 lineups last night, Stevie, and I had a lot. I was one of the tied for first place lineups, and it was duplicated like 279 times. And it's like, here's $2,200. And like, I'm upset at myself. Obviously, once Mike Williams got the second touchdown, that was done with, so it didn't matter. But like, I'm more pissed at myself that one of my lineups was duplicated that much, and I was winning. I'm like the only person that gets upset when I see I'm in first place for $2,200, tied to 8 million ways, going, well, that sucked. That lineup's that's the most I could have made with this lineup. I think I'm the only one that gets upset at that.
Yeah, I would have been happy with that. That's fine. Give me the money. That, like, especially after Sunday's main slate, yeah, that's fine with me. So, another way, like, so if you're thinking that the Tennessee team is going to be off in this game, you could build like a Josh Allen Buffalo defense type of lineup here, I think, to be different as well. Like, you could see Josh Allen still score 3 or 4 touchdowns and the defense do, work. So, like, I think that's another way that, like, if you want to get the defense involved, if you think that this team might be a little slow and they just might be off rhythm wise and stuff, I think that's definitely another way you could look at the slate.
Okay, so you see on the screen, I built 300 lineups. This is without the correlations. So understand that some of these lineups out of the 300 probably don't make that much sense. But just to get a sense of, like, based on our projections, like, who shows up more. So looking at the captain spot, like, actually based on projections and the construction, Singletary shows up out of 300 lineups. He shows up 28% of the time as a captain, and Brown shows up 14% of the time. Raymond, 8%, and Jonnu Smith at captain, 8%. And it turns out that, like, we see these Buffalo players much less in the captain spot. Out of 300 lineups, Josh Allen at captain is only in 16 of them. Diggs is only in 22 of them, 7% and 5% combined. This is what I like. Henry's only at 3%, right? Like, it based on the projections, it shows that a Derrick Henry captain lineup probably projects fairly poorly, but that also probably means that less people are using him also. But I like looking at this going, okay, like, people, maybe I shouldn't be heavily on Diggs and captain or Allen and captain. Maybe I should look at Jonnu Smith more in the captain spot. And then when you go to the flex positions, you can now see that, like, the quarterbacks are in, like, mostly all of the lineups. But I mean, they always have the best median projection. And from the skill position players, because we have Titans defense in here, Bass and Gostkowski, the kickers, they'll show up. But for the skill position players, the highest is Singletary at 30%, Diggs at 21%. Then we get Raymond, Brown, Westbrook, Smith. So based on our projections, like the optimal types of builds would have more likely to have Titans players in the captain and Buffalo players in the flex, unless it's Singletary. So, like, I'm not saying that that's going to be the winning. This has nothing to do with what's going to be the winning lineup, but it's an interesting way that if you have lineup HQ, if you have your own projections, even if you want to import your own projections, lineup HQ gives you a tool to easily run a whole bunch of combinations. And even if you're not going to use those lineups, just to get a sense of maybe where you should be building and where the field would be building.
Yeah, I do this a lot with the main slate. I run 300 lineups and kind of see where projections are leaning as far as like players and stuff. I do think it's interesting. I just like people are going to play Henry at captain. He's going to be popular. Like he's Derrick Henry. He's the main guy. Buffalo DVOA wise, they're not a great run defense, but like fantasy points wise, they're allowing the 8th fewest fantasy points to running back. So like it's 4-4. They're 4 weeks in technically because this is their week 5 game. So it's still really early in the season to be like gauging where these defenses are,
especially with so many players out. So I mean,
yeah.
Like how are they going to react to that? We have another QQ in chat about grouping out Diggs and Singletary. They seem to be the most popular two if you run 4-2s with Tennessee be the 4. But I still think you get different. I wouldn't want to group them out completely. If I'm building 60 lineups, I don't want to have 0 with both of them not together. They're not necessarily negatively correlated. And if it's a low-scoring game, you're going to need the raw points. I mean, even at a medium-scoring game, you're going to need the raw points. And Singletary and Diggs are the obvious best players on the Buffalo side. We get more cheap. To me, there's more cheapies to use on the Titans that I'll take the raw points on the Bills more often than not than, how many players can I jam in? To me, I'd rather play Singletary and Diggs together than I'd play Henry and Brown together. Because I think if Henry has a ceiling game, it's going to come at the great expense of the passing game.
Oh yeah, if you're like your Henry teams, I would definitely limit like how much exposure you have. Like you can make a group with Henry and Tannehill. I don't know if I'd play those two guys together.
And Brandon Reed is late in the chat asking if Moss is playing. Nope, Moss is inactive. So Stevie, if you want to just for the latecomers, go over the general like who's in, who's out, who the quote the best plays type of thing, kind of a overview before we get out of here in about 5 or 10 minutes.
So inactives for the Bills, John Brown, Tre'Davious White on the defensive side, and Zach Moss. Tennessee, it's the COVID players, like nothing crazy on their inactive list, but they have a bunch of people on the COVID list. Corey Davis, Adam Humphries, and Pruitt are the big ones that kind of affect how this slate should go. As far as like best plays go, we think that, wide receiver 1 is definitely very strong here. AJ Brown and Stephon Diggs with a 53 total. Wide receiver 1 is kind of where I'm leaning the most of my builds. We both think that Jonnu Smith is more interesting in a potentially bigger role. We're going to see a lot of ownership on Westbrook and Raymond as cheap plays. And then I think Josh Allen, and, he's a guy that always has a really high floor because of his rushing ability, but he's really expensive. So you're likely going to see a lot of Josh Allen Westbrook builds. That's going to be a very popular type of build. So maybe if you're playing a lot of Josh Allen and you're having a lot of Westbrook, like I am, like I mixed in some Josh Allen Hollister teams to kind of be different.
Right, because instead of playing Westbrook, you play the other $200 guy.
Yep.
No, that makes absolutely sense. Tannehill or Diggs in cash, and Maz Badawi says as a disclaimer, I know I shouldn't be playing cash in Showdown.
Listen, there's large field single entry double ups, so I don't hate like those are the types of cash that like I like to look at in these Showdown slates. But like for me, it's probably Diggs. But again, like I'm playing Tannehill or not Tannehill. I'm playing Josh Allen at captain in cash. So like I'm playing Diggs. So that's why I'm leaning Diggs.
And obviously in order to get Allen and captain, you have to play Westbrook in your lineup, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was Westbrook with Allen as my captain.
Okay.
It averages out to making everything work.
Okay. So you're not? Are you playing Henry or are you playing Tannehill in cash, or
I'm
neither?
not playing either one of them.
Okay. So the
Not playing
AJ
either one.
Brown. So you're primarily playing. So are you playing Singletary with them?
I'm not.
So what the hell? Who the hell are you playing?
Well, in 34 minutes, I'll text you and let you know.
Are you playing the kickers? I mean, I'm trying to put together this lineup. It's like, okay, you're not playing Singletary. You're playing Allen, the captain. Like, who you? Is there someone that's active that I didn't know was active or whatever? I guess you. I mean,
No,
you like a Raymond and Davis and those guys. Those fit in that lineup, right?
maybe.
Maybe. You're keeping it very close to the vest.
Yeah, you're getting closer. Like, yeah, I think Raymond at 4,800, he's someone you can play in cash games. I hate the idea of playing him and Westbrook together, but they're cheap. I think Beasley is someone you can play in cash games if you can't get up to Singletary, and like Jonnu Smith is always another guy you can potentially look at here. So, I think cash builds are really interesting if you go Allen. If you want, I think like if you want a safer cash game build, you could just go like AJ Brown in the captain spot, and it kind of averages out to more money and being able to do more with your lineup.
Right, because to me, I think the best captain is Singletary with no Moss at 8K.
Okay.
I think he provides you with the safest floor, but obviously Diggs and the quarterbacks and AJ Brown have higher ceilings. But I mean, if you have Singletary and the captain and you're playing cash games today, I don't think you're doing anything wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what
No,
but we said that in the very beginning that like I don't think there's necessarily a clear-cut chalk captain. Like there may
I don't
be
think so
on
either.
slates, right?
And we talk about this every Monday. Like, so I say cash games. I play my main lineup in single entry tournaments. So like that is another reason that like I might not have like a Henry or like Singletary in like my main build, because like I'm doing the best of both worlds.
Right. The double ups are like your fallback, and the GPP is what you're aiming for. And me, on the other hand, it's like the GPP is like, well, if my cash lineup does well, like more well than I expect, like I get an extra bonus. But I'm really just trying to double up my money.
Yep.
So
We're different players, Blender. And that's what's fun doing shows with you. I love doing shows with you because we approach slates mentally almost the same by looking for leverage, but our builds are always very different.
right, but that's the fun of DFS. That's why there's
Oh
no
yeah.
like completely correct or completely incorrect like plays in a vacuum, but like I look at your lineups and they make sense for the contest that you play. You look at my lineups and go, they make sense for the contest that when I'm playing vomit stacks and YOLO whatever, right? I'm playing the third tight end and like I'm going for you like that if I win tonight, it's going to be six figures or I'm losing. Like and I'm not playing single entry stuff where like I don't have to get like that. Like that's what I do. You do it, and I know that in your way. Like okay, yeah, I get it. In your 180 single entry whatever GPP. Like okay, you could win with that. Like I'm used to looking at the top of my GPPs and seeing Chase Claypool and Travis Fulgham in the lineups, and I'm looking like, where are those guys? I got to find those guys for this slate. Is Jeff Swaim captain? That's not going to be used? Let me make one lineup of that. Tyler Bass, okay, why not? Kicker could win. I never do the kicker captains, but I mean, you get my kind of drift. That like,
Okay.
if Kyler Croft is the optimal captain, it's more likely than not. Like you won't have that lineup, but in the back of your head, you're going, "Does Jordan have that lineup?" I could see Jordan having a lineup like that.
He's not even in my player pool. I just looked at my lineups on lineup. I don't even have that guy in any lineup. So I wouldn't have him. So there you go.
Right. Like I loved Croft, Knox, Swaim, those garbage tight ends those are the tight ends. See, this is what happens, Stevie. People watch the game. This is why we call them troll tight ends, because the troll touchdowns. Because in the premium Discord, that's what everyone calls. What troll's going to score here? Someone that no one has. But the thing is that's who I play. So when everyone's like, I can't believe the fullback got the goal line carry, I'm dancing. I got 3 lineups with him. If Alex Armas scores a touchdown, Kyle Juszczyk, it's like I at least got one of those lineups. So hopefully that works out. So when everyone's complaining about the trolls, I'm embracing the trolls.
That's what you do, especially on like showdown slates. Like showdown slates, like look at just last night's game. Taysom Hill, he scores a touchdown, and like it changes the whole slate because
But it didn't change the whole slate. His 7 points didn't matter last night.
Yeah, they mattered enough.
Then maybe not in large field contests. You needed double digits out of all your players.
Yeah, well, I played Captain Keenan Allen, so.
No, I played mostly Captain Keenan Allen also. So, I mean, whatever. He gets injured. And that's it.
It was a long night.
Then did you have to rationalize to yourself, did he get enough points? Maybe he is the best captain. And then Mike Williams just like blows that out of the water.
Right? I had Mike Williams in my lineup too, though, but it didn't matter because you had Captain Keenan Allen. So.
Donnie Watson is just asking about 4 2s and 3 3s. Like, I'm not as concerned about like the build type. I want to see what the lineups look like first. So like, I don't just only play 4 2s or 5 1s or 3 3s. If I'm playing 60 lineups, I'm playing a mix of whatever. I just need to make sure that they're as unique as possible. So I wouldn't necessarily focus so much. I know Slate IQ, if you're a premium member, will show like build types and the leverage you get, but it's really dependent on the players that are in there. So there may be some 3-3 builds that like I do want to play. And there may be some 5-1s that like rate out, like that construction rates out to be low probability, but there may be 2 or 3 lineups that you can build that way that do make sense to you and give you enough leverage. So I think focusing on the construction type on showdowns is not as prevalent as like how do I play a 2% don't player? How do I win with Chad Hollister in my lineup? Like Reggie Gilliam, is he in? He showed up in 3 lineups. Who the hell is Reggie Gilliam?
No clue. I will say, like, I never build a 5-1 ever. Like, I restrict that. Like, I set my max players to 4 and my min players to 2. Like, I never build a 5-1. I don't think it hits even closely to enough to roster construct a 5-1. So in an event like a 5-1 hits, like I'm just hoping to break even on those nights because it just doesn't happen enough. So I think that is one way you can instantly create leverage on the field is just not build any 5-1s or 1-5s, however you want to say it.
Right, especially on teams that end up being popular where people are just like jamming in the best plays. You could see a lot of 5-1s that are like if I'm going to play a 5-1, I'm going to make sure to play a 5-1 that is like not duplicate. Like they don't, like it doesn't win enough.
Over or something. Yeah, like $3,000 left over or something. I don't know.
Blender, sorry if you missed it before, but what's your interest level in Ferkser as a pivot off of Jonnu? Who says you have to even pivot? I mean, you could play Jonnu and Ferkser in the same lineup if you want, right? I mean, Ferkser's cheap. It's not like, I mean, what? It's not that negatively correlated. How much is Ferkser?
He is really
200.
Cheap.
You could do whatever you want with a $200 player. He could. I mean,
it's the battle of the 200s. Like McKenzie, it's the battle of the guys under $1,000. Who's going to have the highest score under $1,000 is the guy you're going to need tonight.
And Paul V says, pretty sure 5-1 hits more often than it's played. Well, you should sign up for Rotogrinders Premium because according to Eric Beimfor's data analysis, then you'd be wrong. 5-1 typically does not hit that high, and more people play it than you'd think. I mean, it's still low. Less people do play those types of lineups, but the probability of those hitting is actually even lower. Typically 4-2 in each direction is like the better way to go, and then 3-3. But like I said before, it's all in the context of the slate. So don't just have hard, fast rules of I'm only playing 4-2s. I can't play a 3-3. I can never play a 5-1. Like, it really depends on the slate that you're playing.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree with that. My headset's down.
I thought you were getting secret messages.
No, I was trying to switch headsets, but this one's dead too. So in 4%, you're losing me.
Okay, well, I mean, we're getting out of here anyway. We got to build our lineups. People out there got to build their lineups. We had a good breakdown of the Buffalo Tennessee Titans game. I get to do this to you now because you're the host. right? Like, any final words?
Westbrook breaks the slate.
Oh, you went with a take. Oh, okay. Now you're gonna piss me off even more, right? Because I never
No,
give
like
right because I never give takes to your questions, right? You're like,
I
what? Well, what do
know.
you think's gonna happen? I don't know what's gonna happen, and you're like, oh, this
No,
is a shitty
I
show.
was trying I was really quickly trying to think of like some weird over under because that's what you always do to me to throw me off. But I'm just gonna go with a take. Like Westbrook's my highest owned player. He's gonna break the slate.
Okay, over under on. I have to come up with it on the fly. Over under on sub $1,000 touchdowns.
2.
Oh, two. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm going under on that. Yeah,
Oh,
really,
I
the
guess
line should be
one
one
and
and
a
a
half.
half. I mean, just
One and a half.
truthfully,
Yeah.
it should be 1.5 because under is very late. Because I'll push it with a 2, so you need 3 to win that. So
Yeah,
if
one
it
and a half.
1.5, and you'd take the over.
Yep.
Well, you're going all in on Westbrook, so yeah, you're gonna have to take it over. You know, it's not Russell Westbrook. You know, it's not him playing, right?
No, I get it. Nick Westbrook, man. Like, look at that hair. Like he's going off in this game.
Okay, well, I'm going under. I'm gonna try for one of the troll touchdowns. It's gonna be Jeff Swaim or someone like that. It's gonna be one or Reggie Gilliam, which I don't. He's the 4th tight end. It's gonna be one of those tight ends. I
It'd be
guarantee
like
you, it's gonna be
Hollister or
one of the tight
somebody.
ends.
Yeah, it'd be like Hollister or somebody. Like Buffalo, like Josh Allen to throw 2 touchdowns to the tight end or something. Like you're probably right.
Okay, so as always, if I don't win in the contest tonight, I hope you do. If you're watching out there on YouTube for Tuesday, don't worry about what it says on top. It's not Monday. We're not playing the slate yet. If you're on FanDuel, maybe you are playing the slate yesterday because they haven't scored it yet. But if you're playing today, it's Tuesday Showdown Live on Rotogrinders.com.